Roman numeral 3. Now we're feeling better about the outline. We had several numbers and letters there in a row. Now a Roman numeral. I'm not being out of character. Almost every single year I make fun of the outline at this point in the year because we actually have an outline now. Students love it too. You guys are a little more like exuberant about the outline though. But this next section, I don't know, it's not such a great outline. Roman numeral 3, processes. I mean, it's a nice outline, but the thinking, the parallelism is just a little stretched. You know, so if you're thinking about what I'm saying and where I'm putting it in the outline, which most people don't do, you know, you're going to have struggles. If you're just like, oh, there's an outline, capital letter A, I'm ready, capital letter B, okay, I can do this, you're going to love it. So, what processes before we get to that, what processes take place in education? What are we doing when we're educating? Let me answer that for you, like you shouldn't do. Teacher-answered questions are not very helpful, but we're going to move along. There's 2 things that take place in education. There's teaching and there's training. There's teaching and training that takes place. And this is where the outline is a little bit flawed. So teaching is capital letter A, and training is capital letter C. Like I said, there's a little problem with my outline. I'm saying there's a little problem with my outline. So capital letter A, teaching. Number 1, teaching is, and I might repeat this a little, but teaching is arousing and using the student's mind to grasp a concept. Number 2, teaching is both skill and study. Number 3 is going to be the same type of a statement, and then we'll talk about 2 and 3 together. So teaching, number 2, teaching is a skill and a study. Number 3, teaching is an art and a science. I see people shaking their head. They know where I got that idea from. Do you remember his name? No, Don Maas. You remember the steak dinner? Okay, so it's an inside illustration, but I might share it with you. Okay, so skill and study. Some people, you're old enough to have had this thought. Certain people you think, wow, they're just good at that. They're, what do we say? Natural. Okay, or they're skilled. They're naturally skilled. Okay. Other people, they get it done, but they have to do a lot of work or study. Okay? Teaching is both skill and study. Okay? Some people are more naturally skilled, but even they, if they're going to be good at it, need to study. Some people aren't as naturally skilled, but if they study, they can do it. It's a little bit of both. It's a parallel statement and basically the same idea. An art or a science. Is teaching an art. We think of art as being just, it kind of just comes to you. The people that are artistic, you know, I'm not artistic. So, right? I'm real scientific. Is teaching an art or a science? And the answer is yes. So, right, it's both artistic and it's both scientific. It's, you know, we have skill in our arts, we have to study our science. Okay, that's where those are parallel statements. Okay, so what time is it? Oh, we probably have time. So, would you rather have art or science? Science or art? Okay, so let's just say I say to you all, okay, see if I can get the illustration right. My wife makes great steak dinner, and you're all invited to my house to have steak dinner. We're going to have the house set up very nicely, table set up, everything, but it's just a really good steak, double baked potato, I don't know, your favorite vegetables. No vegetables, okay. And some lemon meringue pie for dessert, okay? But what we'll do with it, just to make it to make it easy, we're going to take all of that, put it in the blender, turn it into the steak dinner shake, and it's just all there. Well, you don't want that? It's all there. I mean, it's the steak is there, the potatoes there, the vegetables there, the desserts there. It's all there. It's, you know, all the nutrients are there. We haven't lost a thing. It's all there. You want some art with your food, okay? Okay. Then we go to the other extreme. What if we say, well, it's going to look like a meal, but when you actually cut into it, it's all made of meringue. We have meringue. We have brown-colored meringue. It's got the grill marks right on it for your steak. A nice double-baked potato, but it's meringue. It's all meringue. It's all fluff. You don't want that. You don't want just the art, right? You want at a nice meal, you want some presentation, and you want some food. And it's the same with teaching, in our teaching. I could get up here, and I'm not saying I'm that great really, but I could get up here and just read everything and talk with the same tone. You'd get all the information, okay, and all that. Or I could vary my rate, vary my speed, try to think of different ways to present the information and all that. I could come in here and just be silly. Keep your attention the whole time. We could laugh and howl the whole time, but you wouldn't get any information, right? So that's the art and the science. Is teaching an art or a science? Yes. Okay, so teaching. Then, so now capital letter B. I didn't say there wasn't a capital letter B. I just said there's two parts of education, processes in education, teaching and training, and teaching is A and training is C. Okay, and we're not going to talk about C because I don't feel like it. Plus I don't have any notes under number C. So you got C, now B. There are 7 laws of teaching. Now you say that should be number 4. Maybe, but I already have 3 unparalleled points under A, and B is really important. There are 7 laws of teaching. In fact, we'll spend a lot of next semester talking about the 7 laws of teaching. Okay? There's 7 laws of teaching. If you're going to teach, everything you do when you teach are subject to these 7 laws. Okay? Regardless of whether you know about them or not, they are laws just like the laws of gravity and the laws of thermodynamics. They are laws of teaching. And so the more you know about the law, well, that doesn't really help until you utilize and obey the law. The more you obey the law, the better you're going to teach. So, and let's see here. So let's just name them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The first law is the law of the teacher. If you're writing, pause, because we'll go back through these and say some more stuff about it. If you're typing, you can put them in and then move your cursor. The second law is the law of the student. The third law is the law of, let's do it in the order that he gave them, language. The fourth is the law of the lesson. The fifth is the law of teaching. The sixth is the law of learning. And the seventh is the law of review. So, now we'll go back and talk about those. So if you're writing now, you can put those in. The first one is the law of the teacher. And we're talking about this because all these laws are about teaching, and teaching is a educational process. Roman numeral 3. I'm trying to connect this to the outline. So, the teacher. The teacher is somebody who knows something. Okay, very simple. Or we could say that another way. The teacher must know something in order to teach. And the more we think about that idea of a teacher knowing something, must know something, we can just go for a long time about that. The more you know, the better you're going to be able to teach. Right? That, yeah, we did yesterday say the more you know, the more you know that you don't know. But as a teacher with knowledge, the more we know, the better we're going to be able to teach. Okay? And it can even be a distraction sometime. Okay, right, I get up here and I start talking about one thing and something else I know comes in here and I start talking about that and we go on rabbit trails. But they're not really rabbit trails. They're connected. It's all connected. It all fits together. Unless it really is a rabbit trail. But you know, the more you know, the more you can help some. And if I know more and I know my students better, I know what they know. And I can connect what I'm saying to what their knowledge is, which is the law of the lesson. But so a teacher must know something. The more he knows, the better he's going to teach. And then a lot of things, a teacher must continually be learning himself. When he stops learning, he stops teaching. Okay? Lots of different things to remember here, and this is just a quick overview. So, the teacher. The second law is the law of the student. The law of the student. And the law of the student basically says that you must pay attention and be interested in order to learn. The pupil must attend with interest to the lesson being learned. But you must pay attention. You must be paying attention and be interested. Sometimes you can pay attention and not be interested, right? Sometimes you can look like you're paying attention and you're not. You know, you can look interested, but you're not paying attention. It's just that knowing look. You know, some of you are giving that to me. So, all right. So you have to be. So the student. I mean, if we're saying, okay, he has to pay attention and he must be interested. He's got to be a willing participant in it. If we drag the person in here, you know, chain a log to their foot, like they did in the early Sunday schools in England, because they didn't want to be there, you're not going to learn much. Okay? Now, whose job is it to attract their attention and keep them interested? The teacher. Okay? So they have to, I mean, it's not really just the teacher. You have to be willing, a participant in the process. Okay? But I am the one in charge of the classroom. I'm the one that's talking mostly. And so I need to work at grabbing your attention, keeping your attention, getting it back when it leaves or when it goes, and not just attention, interest. So the law is that the student, in order for a student to learn something, basically, generally, in order to learn, they have to be paying attention and interested. Okay? And so if we're going to be teaching, which that's half of education, we have to have students' attention and interest. And I should say, this is, don't worry about writing this down unless you want to write it down next to the letter C. You can't teach without training, and you can't train without teaching. So if you that's why I just spend all the time on the teaching. The training is just, it will come naturally. Not that you couldn't write some things down and give some principles for training, but it kind of they work together. All right, so the third law is the law of language. The law of language. And this law says that the words used in the classroom must be understood in the same way by everyone. It's easy to illustrate the point by having Alan get up here and teach us something in Spanish. Very few of us could understand it. When I have students from Africa, you know, only one person, like James, could get up here and talk in whatever he knows, Bemba or whatever, and nobody understands it, except him. Okay? So we understand language, the actual formal language has to be the same, but the law says the vocabulary, not just the words used have to be understood, the meaning of the word has to be the same. We both have to be assigning the same meaning to the words being used. Okay? And this is most hard for the teacher, because the teacher knows a lot more words and has a lot more understanding, and so when he uses words or she uses words, he has to be careful to make sure that the students are understanding the word in the same way as I'm using the word. And this is especially difficult and humorous with young children. You know, they hear, you know, I know of one, but you could look up like song titles, you know, children's song titles, and you know we have all these songs that we know are sacred songs, and they've got the weirdest titles to them. You know, Lidano Kinky Turtle. That's the one that I remember all the time. It's like, okay, yeah, but we've heard things like that. Okay, and for that matter, it happens with adults. You know, we're working out, I think I gave this illustration last semester. I'm working out just slight little bit, me and my wife in the morning. She says, I'm going to have aches today. And I'm like, why are you going to have aches today? I'm the one that hurt my neck. You know, and she's like, no, eggs. I'm going to have eggs today for breakfast. So just so we have to all be assigning the same meaning to what's, that was a close one, to what's going on in the words used. Okay, so then the fourth one is the law of the lesson. The law of the lesson. And this, we could also say there needs to be common knowledge, or you start with common knowledge. The lesson, you can't teach something to someone that knows nothing of where you're coming from. Now, the law doesn't say that you must have taught on it before. It just has to be something in their knowledge, or it has to be able to be connected to something in their knowledge. So, if they know about this in nature, they're familiar with this in nature, I can show them a parallel truth in the subject. It might be completely new and they never saw it before, but they have seen the process before. They have some knowledge. We have to start, lessons start with the known and move to the unknown. Has to have common knowledge. Has to start with common knowledge. So that's the law of the lesson, I would say. Let me also say, though, that as Christians, I think this is, I'm not going to say it's easy, but it should be easy to understand, because there's one starting point for all knowledge, and that's God. It's all connected to God. And the more we understand or learn in our subject, the more we see there's a lot more connections between subjects than what we even think. Okay? And it's just because it's all part of God's creation. So, but that should allow us that should help us to be able to connect what we're saying to something. And actually, I would say that the failure to connect things even if we're teaching independent of God, and we're saying this subject stands by itself, and this subject stands by itself, this subject stands by itself, all this information stands on its own, and there's no connection between it, that gives subliminally, or at a foundational level, that's giving a disjointed picture of God, because God is not like God. Everything comes together in God. Not everything is apart in God. So subjects are always connected to one another. Things within subjects everything is connected to something, because it's all part of God's creation. So then the fifth law is teaching. The law of teaching. These are all laws of teaching, but there's a particular law of teaching. And teaching is arousing or waking up or using the student's mind to grasp a concept. It's very, very much connected to the law of learning. So what I say here, I could just repeat in a couple minutes. But if I get up and say a whole bunch of things, and none of your minds grasp a thing that I said, have I taught? I haven't. In order to be teaching, you have to be grasping what I'm saying, what I'm talking about. So teaching is waking up your minds, arousing your mind, whatever the word is. Arouse is like a word from the 1880s. Okay? But waking up the student's mind to grasp, to understand the concept that I'm teaching. That's what teaching is. So when you get up to teach, whether you're teaching a short missionary story or a Bible lesson or a verse, if you're just getting up and saying it, they're not learning it. You're not teaching. You have to get their mind to grasp what you're saying. Now, I've got time. I mentioned a Bible verse or something like that. Sometimes all we want them to grasp are the words of the verse. Okay? We don't have to give a full commentary and them understand the commentary and the meaning of the verse. Sometimes all we're trying to teach are the words of the verse. Okay? So if I'm teaching the words of the verse, I need to arouse their mind, get them to understand the words of the verse. Not the meaning of the words, not the connection of it just yet. Okay? Okay? So don't take that statement like, if I'm only teaching words, I'm not teaching. You might be that's all you're trying to teach. But they don't really know the verse and its meaning unless we teach them that. We take steps toward that. And I say that because we work with children a lot here. But teaching is waking their mind up and getting their mind to grasp the concept. And that's where it's connected to, teaching, and you can't teach without students. You can't learn without a teacher. Okay? I'm not saying it has to be a blood and flesh person, but somebody's teaching. Even when you read a book, somebody wrote the book. Okay? So they work together. They can never work independent of one another. Now, I could record something for a camera, and at the moment, I could be going through the motions of teaching, but nobody's learning while I'm recording. Technology allows us to separate the instances. Okay? It makes it a little hard because I can't read responses or anything like that to know whether I should repeat something or anything like that. But people can learn from that also. But you have to have both in order for it to happen. So the law of learning. The law of learning. Let's say the law of learning occurs, or learning occurs, when the concept is grasped with the student's own understanding. Okay? So, simple, easy question, rhetorical question. If I'm teaching a concept, and the students can tell me the words that I've used to teach the concept, do they know the concept? No. Just because they can repeat what I've said doesn't mean they've learned. Unless all I'm teaching is the words that I've said. Okay? So I want to balance that out, because see what we have in education, we have even whole textbooks that are all about teaching concepts, and they neglect review and all of that type of thing. Well, because review isn't really learning. Repetition isn't really learning. Well, no. If all you can do is say some words, you haven't really learned. But, we're human beings. There's steps to take even in the learning process. There's the basics. There's the grammar. And then there's the connection. The logic. And then there's the usefulness of it. Where was I going there? So learning actually occurs when the concept is grasped with the own understanding. So the law of learning is that the student must, basically the idea must speak with their own words the concept that has been learned. Put it into their own language. So comprehension is important, and then past that is the purposeful or creative application of it. That's purposeful and creative application is kind of the peak or the top of demonstrating actual useful knowledge or learning. And again, okay, so we have information, that's the start. Comprehension and connection, that's the middle. Usefulness, creative uses, purposeful uses, applications, using your understanding to solve problems, to figure out whatever, that's the top. And then finally, the last law is the law of review. You will not know that you have taught until you do review. And when you do review, it's also a time to be able to correct misunderstandings in the original presentation. So kind of the rule for the law of review is review, review, review. At least that's the way it reads. It's like written and then italicized and then all caps. Review, review, review is the law of review. An illustration of a point made generally that I think is worth hearing over and over and over and over and over again is that basically about 30% of your lesson should be review. Now let's erase from our minds that review only happens at one time during the lesson. Like we only review for the last 30% of the class period or the first 30%. Review happens all over the place. It happens in the beginning, it happens in the middle, over and over again. It would be, I mean, I don't know that I do review 30%, but I think this is how you actually learn. The reviewing is what cements, and when we're looking at something over and over. Even really, our outline today was quite helpful in this because the first half was just reviewing the one point from yesterday. We didn't review very much the nature of a truth, but we did review in tremendous amount the nature of man, because the purpose of education is to help us fulfill our God-given responsibilities, which we understand because we understand the nature of man. So my point there is saying the second Roman numeral is really doing all kinds of review, even though for my formal initial review today was, what did you remember from our lesson yesterday? It was just kind of very, like 15 seconds. Trying to get your mind back, thinking about what we learned yesterday. But I didn't proceed in that, because once I asked that question, I thought, oh no, the next thing we're going to talk about is all about coming out of yesterday's question. So, review is very, very important though. If you just state something once, if you've only heard something once, you don't remember it. Not much at all. Okay? And you say, well, I remember something. Why do you remember it? Because you thought of it again and again and again. Other things you saw reminded you of it. And that was review for you. So, review is probably the most important of the 7 laws of teaching. Okay, so we have a few extra minutes, and we will stop here either way. The next time we come together, we will look at Roman numeral 4, and it does start with a P. It's places, the places of education. And then the 5th Roman numeral is policies. Okay, that is it for today.